Facing a multi-million-dollar budget deficit, the El Paso Independent School District Board of Trustees has voted on the positions they'll cut and which to spare in an effort to close the funding gap. Trustees voting on cuts to 55 contracted positions, a reduction in the number they considered earlier this month. Our Aaron Montes covered EPISD's meeting and brings us the story.
It was an emotional evening with school board trustees voting to save school psychologist positions, but also making the tough choice to cut other positions. The meeting started with employees voicing their concerns about how the cuts will hurt the district's services. By the meeting's end, some in the audience caught with a surprise. The board voting to save school psychologist positions. Staff gasping and emotional to hear the announcement. Renee King Rivera was one of those in attendance. She is an EPISD employee.
I have a lot of relief. I know I was worried about, how my last paycheck would basically have been June 30th. We talk about prepping our kids for change and knowing what's coming. This was a very agonizing 3 weeks, knowing that we were on a list, not knowing how far I could stretch my last final paycheck.
Parents also came to voice their concerns about how the cuts will impact children's education and what services will be available during the school year. School Board President Leah Hanani said the board has heard the public's and employees' concerns. She said the board is trying to mitigate the impacts budget decisions will have on children in the classroom. Hanani says hundreds of positions from central office have also been eliminated.
So it just seems that central office costs were continuing to increase as the number of our kids went down. It's certainly a mismatch and not what this board believes is an alignment of the budget.
She says 150 at-will positions from central office were presented to the board to be considered for cuts, and that 209 central office positions were considered and eliminated as of May 19th. Now, according to district officials, that's all for cuts to contracted employees. Any others would be to at-will staff. But Board President Hanani says that the number of contracted positions may actually be reduced. And so we'll have those updates for you. For KTSM 9 News, I'm Aaron Montes at EPISD headquarters.
Well, our thanks to Aaron for that report. This isn't the first time in recent years El Paso ISD has been faced with a financial crisis. It was about a decade ago this district's Board of Managers was led by former El Paso Mayor D. Margo. Margo joined KTSM Live at 6:30 to discuss his take on the district's financials. Before he was mayor, Margo served as the president of the El Paso ISD Board of Managers and was tasked with leading the district out of a multi-million-dollar hole. Now, Margo tells KTSM this current $50 million+ hole isn't a result of one bad decision, but rather several over a few years.
Bottom line is you've got to control your costs. And it appears to me that given this lack of oversight by the trustees, which wasn't an overnight failure, I hate to be crass, but to me, some of these trustees should have been arrested for impersonating trustees.
Interesting. KTSM's Andy Morgan also asked Margo about the Meta Data Center out in northeast El Paso, which is a deal that Margo essentially initiated while serving as mayor for the city. And he had a lot to say about both topics. Of course, you can watch both of those questions and the full interview over on KTSM.com. And remember, you can always stay up to date with our latest stories and all the latest weather conditions on our free KTSM 9 News app.